Hi guys, and welcome to SenStream. Good morning and welcome to episode 4 of SenStream. This morning we take a look at what's happening in Teaching Week 4. We get names confirmed for the Roehampton Conference. We discuss how you can maximize the LinkedIn experience. I beg for volunteers to become course representatives at the nth hour. We take some questions and provide some answers in the chat. Stay tuned, folks. I was about to start talking and realized that my microphone wasn't working. Again, guys, I am very much on the back foot this morning. I'm showing you all the slides that make SenStream work, but nevertheless, we've made it here. I can see lots of people arriving in the chat, which is fantastic. Let me just say hello to a few folk now. Gillian, good morning. Miguel, good morning. We've got Kirsty, good morning. Katie, good morning. Laura, good morning, and we've also got Fran coming in there as well at the end. It's really nice to see everyone in the chat and everyone getting involved with SenStream today. Now, I am going to try and keep it nice, short and succinct this morning, simply because most of you will have to listen to me for an hour and a half this afternoon anyway, and I feel like we may be hitting the maximum amount of time that you can, any reasonable human could sit listening to me for. So I will persevere with the stream this morning, but we have got some good stuff to cover. We are going to cover the updates from the modules leading into next week, just to keep everybody on track and so everyone knows what they're doing. I've got some another continued professional development opportunity. We're going to talk about the Roehampton Conference, just so you guys know exactly what to expect and what's going on there. And then we'll, again, as always, the chat, as we see, is functioning properly today, which is great. So it should work correctly on all of the slides that we get today. So if you've got a question, please do make sure that you ask it in the chat as we move forward. And obviously, I will always constantly keep an eye on it. So let's move on to the module updates, and we're going to start with nutrition and performance. So nutrition performance, I've had a chat with a few of you over the last week or so about various different things, and it does seem like nutrition performance is coming in as quite a popular module. And do reflect on that in the chat if you've got a chance. So, what part of the module are you guys enjoying? So Jane has got some interesting sessions for you lined up next week. The theme of the week will be hydration status and fluid issues amongst athletes. So you have a dual lecture, and then you have a practical session follow-up, much like you did with the carbohydrate feeding stuff with me. And you will have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about hydration and fluid strategies during the lecture session before you then move into the laboratory, where I do believe some of you may be sweating. So Jane has advised that you come prepared in suitable kit for exercising. Do bear in mind as well, we have got changing facilities and such like, so you can always change into something and change out of it as well. Kirsty's just popped in there and said she's really enjoying how personalized it is to each individual. That is excellent to know, particularly coming from a consultant, as it were. So that's fantastic to know, Kirsty. Thanks for sharing that with us. So the whole purpose of that session is going to be looking at how you can actually assess hydration status, and then obviously measuring the physiological impact that hydration has on things like cognitive function. So Jane has politely asked if any of you have an iPad or a device, I think is probably more suitable there, to ask you to politely bring it along. She's requested there that you need four in total. So I think a laptop or an iPad or something along those lines would probably suffice. So if you have access to one and you're happy to bring it in, that would be fantastic, and it would certainly help facilitate the session. If there are any questions, concerns, queries with regards to nutrition and performance, then do get in touch with Jane, or obviously raise a question now, because obviously I speak to Jane quite frequently. So those are your updates for next week. Hydration and fluid in athletes, lecture-based session followed by a practical. The lecture is going to be synced to maximize the amount of time that you have in the practical session. Come prepared to exercise with a change of clothes or something that's suitable for exercising in. Be prepared to be dealing with measures of hydration status and providing and measuring the impacts of hydration on cognitive function. Let's move it on to the next module. We have concepts and principles of nutrition. You obviously have that this afternoon with me as well. We're going to be talking about energy intake, energy balance, how we measure expenditure, not more expenditure than intake, but we're going to look at the whole picture really in an hour and a half, turns out. So we're probably going to need that entire hour and a half if anyone has seen how many slides we're going to try and get through. But nevertheless, I've done it a few times before, so it should be okay. But next week, now we have Frank, Prof, I think he's a prof, Frank Hu's talk coming in. Personalized nutrition for improving health. The question there is health, hype or hope. Now this is on the 17th of October, and as you can see, the actual talk, the bit where Frank is going to be chatting to us all, is between 3:15 and 2:30. Now, I believe Claire has been very keen to ensure that you guys are aware of this talk and that we are encouraging you all to go along to it, because we don't get speakers of this kind of caliber coming to the university all that often, to be honest with you, and therefore we need to maximize the opportunities when they do come. So tickets are all sold, but Claire has had a word with EHAB, who is the guy who is organizing these events, and has just basically encouraged you all to come anyway. So hopefully, I don't know how Claire has managed that, but that's what she's telling me. So so that will be the first part of that session. Now it's only till 2:30. You guys are going to have to promptly leave the session at that 2:30. So you can get back to your normal concepts and principles of nutrition session, whereby you're going to be doing the critical readings. Now let's have a quick look at what Claire has had to share about that. So there's 3 papers based on Blackboard. You can select and read one of them in detail. And what she's asked you to do is to write some notes and thoughts against each of the questions Claire has asked. And basically, you need to then come to the session where you will be divided in each one of the 3 rooms, depending on which paper you have read. And to hopefully say some intelligent things about it to your peers and likely with the session leader. Now, from memory, I'm a bit all over the place at the moment because I've got a few things going on. Our previous cohort of MSc students have just had their final grades released, which is always a fun day for me, following up various different queries and questions and such like. But yeah, I should be leading one of these sessions. And they're a good opportunity to have a really critical look at some of the a given paper to sort of see, you know, what elements of the paper are you guys picking up on? How can you think about it critically? And when we say critically, that doesn't mean how bad is it. It means really kind of getting into the nitty gritty of, well, when they've done a particular assessment and then made and actually presented that data in the results section, what subsequent discussion points have they raised from that, and what does the data and the discussion point actually lead, you know, succinctly and draws relevant conclusions off the back of that. Sorry for losing my words there. And that's a tricky skill to have, you know, to think about the entire process of the paper is actually quite difficult to get through. So that's why we're going to walk through one of those examples with you. So read the paper in detail, make sure you make notes on it that kind of try and extract out some things that have been done well, where it could be improved, and whether the whole paper ties together. You know, is there a succinct story there? I'd be curious to know in the chat if anybody has actually had the chance to read any of these papers yet. If anyone's putting forward their preferences for which paper they are going to read, so that you can, you know, find out what your peers and your colleagues are all reading, and then you can all, you know, contribute to the thing. I think there's one obvious SEN paper there, sport exercise nutrition paper there from memory. So do check it out and have a look and come along to the session prepared to speak. Next module is Research Methods for Health Sciences 1. Teddy's only given me some pretty brief updates this time. I asked for a little bit more information, but I'm going to make the assumption that most of it is on Blackboard. And if it isn't, then please do let me know. But there are some directed studies for you to complete using SPSS. So now you're in this block of using SPSS and considering the techniques. Teddy's put together some activities to try and encourage you to really reinforce the use of those techniques within the software itself. So do make sure that you get across there, download the activities, and actually work through them. If you don't do that, you're not reinforcing what you're covering in the sessions. And therefore, when it comes to actually being able to use them in the future, you will have had less opportunities to actually practice using them. So do make sure that you go through those activities that Teddy is pointing in your direction. Now, he's also encouraged you there to start some reading on the normal distribution and confidence interval. Again, I half feel like having a little look on the Blackboard site just to see what you guys can see, but I think I'll do that after the fact today, just because I guess, as I say, I want to get through the stream fairly succinctly and quickly today. So there are readings. If they're not obvious, please do say so in the chat so I can try and make them more obvious, about normal distributions and confidence intervals. Normal distribution is kind of like a pillar of understanding what your data is telling you. So I don't want to tread too much on Teddy's toes here for the session, but essentially you will need to make an assessment whether the group of data or the set of data that you've actually collected on a variable is normally distributed, which, excuse me, typically takes this kind of bell-shaped curve, which means that the vast majority of your responders fall in the middle, which would be your mean and are closest to the mean, and then you have a progressive fall away to the extremes from that point, either side of there. So if you don't have a normally distributed data set, that affects the type of assessment that you can make, because a lot of the statistical assessments that you use make the assumption of normally distributed data. So we need to appreciate what normally distributed data means, what that means for the assumptions of the statistical test that you're using, and what happens when we deviate from the norm. For example, maybe you had two individual peaks, like a split distribution. Your mean would still be in the middle, but you have a clustering of two different data sets either side. So that has an impact on how you then begin to understand the distribution of your data. And again, we talked a little bit about skewed data, where you have this grouping of variables of responses or measures of one side or the other, which gives you a skewed distribution. So again, you would handle data differently depending on those particular outcomes. Now, Teddy has also indicated here that there'll be an additional 2-hour tutorial running next week. He's suggested that this will be discussed in the session. I asked for a little bit more detail as to when those sessions are. If anybody knows, please let me know in the chat, because that would be super helpful. I'm a little bit at the mercy of the module leaders with these updates. So do keep an eye out for those. If there's any announcements that come up, or if they're in the session, if you're not able to attend, if someone could just put it in a joint Facebook group, if that now exists, that would be super helpful to keep everybody on track. Just while we're there, to encourage everyone to get involved. Is it going to load? That's the question. I don't think it's enjoying it today. With that in mind, let me head back. Just to highlight here, let's just go back down. Kirsty's highlighted here. I think I'll be looking at the high fiber bean diet study. So if you are thinking of getting involved in some of the readings on concepts, there's where Kirsty's going to be. It would be great to know what everybody else is thinking. If you've not decided, just let us know. There's 10 people watching, so let us know what you're up to, where you plan to be, and how you're planning on getting involved with that session. Okay, let's head back to the presentation. Thanks for contributing, Kirsty. That's excellent. Thanks. Let's move it on to the next session, which will be Sanjoy's practical skills for sports nutritionists. So the 3 topics he's going to be covering next week will be communication skills for nutritionists. So how often, sorry, Kirsty, I've just seen Kirsty's comment come up. I keep missing the R, Christy, and I'm really sorry. That is bad form on my part, and I apologise profusely. My apologies. Glasses for a reason, and the screen is deceptively far away, so I apologise once again. I never said SenStream was perfect, or myself for that matter, but here we are. Thank you for correcting me. So communication skills, getting your client's name correct in the first instance is probably going to be a good start. So again, apologies once again, but communication skills for nutritionists. Half the time, the person who's going to be sat across the room for you does not have the depth of nutrition knowledge that you have, and as a result of that, how as an individual are you going to communicate what are some pretty complex ideas, interventions to suggest to that person that it's worth doing? And that isn't sitting there and rattling off references and p-values and 95% confidence intervals for why in this particular study of 50 people that particular thing worked. Then that's not what that's about. That's about translating that information into usable information so that people can then move forward and actually understand the intervention you're planning and actually then use it. So how can you go about doing that? And that's quite a skill. Like a lot of scientists within universities as a whole, being able to translate your kind of research field that you spend a lot of time thinking about and rooming around in your head to a wider audience that doesn't have that back catalogue of information to dwell on is challenging. And to be able to do that without losing the detail, without losing the focus, without losing the meaning of what it is you're trying to communicate can be challenging. And half of the battle is use the language that you actually use as well. So it'd be interesting to go along to that session and just pick up on that. To help with that, you're going to be doing some role play with some client consultations, which should be good fun. So do come along with an open mind to be able to get involved with that stuff. Everyone finds it a bit awkward, and that's fine. But unless you get the opportunity to practice, that's going to be tricky. And obviously, I know some of you have a lot more experience of doing this, so it'd be interesting to see how you approach those different situations, and us to be open to how other people might approach you with that. So again, really helpful, pragmatic kind of session going on here. And then the final thing, exploring how we can educate the athlete clients about nutrition. Again, use of language, use of generic language, and what's the term now? There's I can't remember what it's called, but plain English, or the Plain English campaign is a good way to kind of think about that, where you're not using superfluous words where you don't need to use them. That would be a good example. So yeah, get across to the session, get involved, and see if you can improve your communication skills or increase your awareness of how to improve those communication skills moving forward. So we've got some chat coming through. So Christy, again, my apologies. Just an error is what I would say. I apologize again. Laura, haven't decided. Might try to skim through them all before deciding! Exclamation mark. That sounds like a great shout. that's what the abstract's there for as well. So if you don't have the time to read through the entire thing to just get a flavor of what's going on, smash through the abstracts, then you should be laughing. Stephanie, welcome to SenStream. I'll be catching up with you later as well, so don't forget, be at my office. And Gillian, me too, Laura. Gonna have a look through all the papers. A good option is what I would say. At least you can then have a look and see whether there is two approaches. Well, different approaches. One, oh, I don't know much about that area, but I'm interested in it, would like to find out more. Or I'm quite comfortable with that subject area, but I'd like to deepen my knowledge as to how you could critically evaluate a given topic as well. So different approaches. Pick a paper that you're fundamentally interested in, though, because it'll make the whole thing a little bit easier for everyone to deal with. Okay, thank you for contributing to the chat once again. That's the whole point of this, like to make sure that everyone gets involved. So what have we got next? Okay, I promised myself to try and get the stream done within 30 minutes today because I have a fairly busy afternoon. So the continued professional development opportunity is as follows. So let's just have a quick look. I have a dedicated slide. So there is an entire section of the university which is dedicated to like alumni events, basically. So I can just about read this from where I'm sat, but there is an event taking place later on in October. I'm going to give you the dates and the details in a second, which is in partnership with the Creative Enterprise Centre, which is part of the university. There's a dedicated centre to try and developing enterprise and entrepreneurial activities of students to come and talk about LinkedIn. So there's an alumnus here. I can't quite see his name, I'm afraid. Manuel Heilacker, I think it is. You will be able to see this much more clearly than I can, trust me. He is a senior talent acquisition manager for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa for, I'm assuming, a large company, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's actually from LinkedIn, which is interesting if he is. But essentially, as an opportunity to come and talk about how to use your LinkedIn profile to increase your professional networks, to manage your professional brand, like your entity. And that's really important if you are planning on becoming your own nutrition consultant, that you manage your identity, your brand, and how people perceive you and the message that you're trying to convey, which should be, using terms like professional, valid, research-led. Those types of terminology are the types of things that you might affiliate with your personal brand. And also, how can you use that platform for seeking and connecting to opportunities that you may be presented to? So the good news with this as well is if I just pass you on the details, I will try and post this on the Blackboard site as well, is that it falls out with your teaching remit. So this will be on Tuesday, the 22nd of October from 6 till 8 p.m. at the Portland Hall, University of Westminster on Little Titchfield Street, which is just around the corner from here. There's free drinks and refreshments. What more a reason do you need to turn up to this event? So to find out more and book a place, head across to westminster.ac.uk/what-it-takes and get yourselves involved. Again, if you are planning on attending, then let your peers know so that everyone knows that they're not going to be there on their own. I think it's a great opportunity. I use LinkedIn for a professional profile. I think you would be wise to do so as well. And I also host the MSc alumni group on there as well, as a way for people who have been through the MSc program, so previous students this year, you guys will be eventually invited to that as well, so that you can always find people who you've got a joint common interest with, and you can also see what they're up to, where they've gone to, how their career has progressed, and also that there's immediate direct links that you can share in. I also constantly post job opportunities, PhD opportunities, and such like in that particular group, just so that just so you know that you're not forgotten about. As soon as you step out of Westminster, things do continue. There is still a good community there, of which I want you guys to be a part of once you get to that point in your MSc lives. So head across, get involved. Let me know in the chat. Let your peers know on whatever communication that you guys are all using, whether you're going to be attending, so that you can get involved. I mean, free drinks and refreshments. What more can an MSc student want, is what I would say on that front. So the final point that I'm going to raise today, I have kind of messed up a little bit here because I forgot to put on the information here. The long and short of it is, I need some students, one or two, I'm not that fussed at this stage, to be the course representatives for the MSc program. So what that means is you become the student voice for any concerns, queries, or opportunities to communicate good, successful things on the course to me as course leader and also to the teaching team. And there's a way that I go about doing that. Typically, I get you come on STEM stream as well, so you'll be sat here next to me. We'll be having a bit of a chat about how the course is going. I also provide you with some resources in order to obtain feedback from the students that I can see and you guys can see, that's anonymous, so you can be honest and open rather than having to feel like, you know, you can't be honest about your actual thoughts on the course because of whether we might interpret that different. That would never happen, but to remove all chances of that, we make the feedback anonymous. But if you want to be considered as the course representatives, please can you send me an email as soon as possible. It's not too taxing. It's a good opportunity to just kind of be a sort of central person for your peers. Depending on what the response rate is like, usually it's pretty bad. So, but depending on what the response rate is like, if I get a few people, I'll put it up for a vote and then people can vote for their preference. If I only get one or two people, then they will get put forward. Again, I've been a bit slow to the table on this front, and I apologize on that front. It's just, yeah, it's been a busy few weeks. But nevertheless, if you're interested, please email me today to say, I'm interested in being a course representative for the MSc in Sport and Exercise Nutrition. I'll send you some materials back to show you what the actual role entails, and then you can make a decision from there. So get in touch, please. Okay, I think we are more or less there. Now, we've got the chat. Now, the chat doesn't appear to be working that well, so I am just going to drag up maybe... yeah, let me bring up... you guys can see the chat anyway, but I'll bring it up onto the screen anyway. I like to change the view every now and again because it gets a bit dull otherwise. Okay, we don't have a screen, but that's fine. So, hopefully, whilst any further questions are coming in on the chat, I never know how delayed things are. So I will keep an eye on that as closely as possible as we're moving forward. Just while we're doing that, hopefully you're all up to speed for what's going on each of the modules next week. If you want to find out more specific detail about any given module, then please go onto the module Blackboard sites and look for the resources that I've kind of pointed you in the direction of, particularly for research methods for Health Sciences 1, just because you've got some tasks that are outstanding there that need to be completed ahead of the next week's session. So do take the opportunity to have a look at those. Katie's come in there and said, I'm liking the look of the modern pentathlon one, I think. I'm fairly certain that is the paper that I will be chairing for that session as well. So I'll be I read it last year. I'm gonna have to read it again, I'm afraid, because I can't quite remember exactly what they cover. But we're gonna have a critical look at this paper, see what they've covered, and try and answer the questions that Claire has posed. Within your peers, within the people that you're sat with, but also coming back together and maybe getting my contribution to that and maybe helping to facilitate and extract out some different viewpoints that we have across the room and such like. That LinkedIn event looks exciting. I think if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I think create one is what I would say, especially those that have got a previous history of you've already been in the workplace but you haven't considered it before. It's always good to have that online presence and something to dwell on. You could always put it on a CV as a link if people want to find out more about you. I always think that there's a lot of fear around people like doing this additional searching and like almost profiling you before a job interview. So like looking at what you've said on Twitter and what you've put on Instagram or whatever. Like, first of all, make sure your private life is kept private, but make it easy for them to find the good stuff. So that's having a professional Twitter account. That's having a professional LinkedIn account, which details all of the good things that you've done in your professional lives until that point, and makes it really easy for people to find out what that is, which reinforces you as an applicant, makes you, gives you the best chance and the best footing for people to make a good judgment about your skill set. So make it easy for people, present a professional online appearance, and go to these types of extra training sessions where you find out more. One thing that has just popped up in my mind that I haven't mentioned was the Roehampton conference. For all of the students that provided responses in the Google form, which I believe was 15 in total, I have now passed on all of the details that you've provided to the conference organisers, and the conference organisers have come back and confirmed with me that your name has been registered for the conference and that you will have a name badge when you arrive. Now, I don't believe there's any more that needs to be done at this stage, but if there is, I will definitely let you know. But yes, your details have been recorded. I'd probably bring along your student badge with you, your student ID, so that they know that you are indeed from Westminster, because that's your attendance at the conference is under the guise that you are an MSc student from Westminster, and that's why you've got the free entry. It also proves who you are as well. So you can pick up your conference ID badge and move in and get involved. I'm still working on getting approval for staff, but I know Sanjoy's going, and I think I'm getting to the stage where I'm just going to buy my own ticket instead of waiting for the university to approve it for me. So once I do know what staff are going closer to the date, I will definitely let everybody know, so everyone has that everyone's safe in the knowledge. Also, be aware that a few of our alumni are going to be going. So, as I've mentioned before, your peers from this time last year, so they would have started last year or 2 years ago if they were part-time students. They received their final awards today. We got some exceptional performances, some coming in with an average score of 76% across all the modules, which was fantastic, really good work. 3 distinctions, I think, from across the board as a final graduating mark. Lots of merits, lots of passes. So yeah, if anybody's watching, which I doubt they are because they're probably busy working these days, but congratulations to those students. But those students, a few of them are going to the conference as well. So it'd be a nice opportunity for you to meet up with some of your peers from last year and see how they've progressed on since they finished the course, and as we move towards graduation for those students as well. So I've been prattling on for a little while now. If there is not any last minute burning questions coming in on the chat, I have the chat open in front of me, expecting any questions to come in. If you have a question, do put it in as soon as possible, but I am going to start wrapping it up unless someone asks a question. So exciting week next week, lots to cover across the different modules. You've got the Frank Hugh talk, you've got some discussion with Claire on the concepts session. You've got the practical kind of session on hydration status. Make sure you come prepared to exercise. And you've got the communication skills session with Sanjoy on practitioner skills. So an exciting week ahead for you guys to get involved with. I will see most of you this afternoon at 2 o'clock for the concepts and principles lecture on energy. So make sure you're across for that. It'll be recorded on Panopto. I'm trying to probably try and stream it as well. Not like this in the way that Panopto does it. And I also will collect the transcripts for this new app that I'm trying out at the moment as well. So if you can't make it, you're covered. But if you are there, do feel free to come along, ask questions, get involved. So I'm going to call it a day there. Thank you very much for listening, tuning in once again. Do feel free to get in touch if you want to be a course rep. Make sure you like this video if you've enjoyed it. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for listening and watching. I will see you all later on in the day. Take it easy. Cheers.